These content creator clowns. They think they know shit about boxing. That is cat. That is cat. They want to disrespect William Skull. They know who they are. They didn't even watch the dang fight. Half of them didn't even watch it. Half of them were under the influence of drugs when they watched the fight. And they wouldn't know how to judge a fight if it was 2 inches in front of them or if they were just sitting at ringside. It's absolute clown worthy. I saw guys, the Boxing Voice, T Street Controversy, multiple YouTube channels shit on William Skull. And some people are so big into dick riding a certain fighter, which we know. And it's not that I necessarily have a problem with the Canelo fan base. It's that they're completely dismissive of the fact that he ducked William Skull and the fact that they think that, and they feel that they don't have to defend the fact that Canelo ducked not only Skull but David Benavidez amongst other fighters, and we're definitely going to see how everything is going to come to light, because I believe 100% that all these guys that are sitting there flexing their muscles because they're Canelo fans, they definitely don't know that William Skull outclassed his opponent Shishkin. Unless if Canelo Alvarez grows 4 inches or something like that, I don't see him doing what he did to or doing what Shishkin did to William Skull. Not at all. Canelo is slower. He doesn't release his punches like that. I believe that William Skull will outclass Canelo Alvarez. And any experienced boxing historian will tell you that the KO punching percentage does not matter if a boxer has a very good skill set. He can rely on his skills throughout the rounds. So the fact that people would say, oh, what about the KO ratio? Really, people should really think again and again and again, does that fighter use his skills more? Instead of jumping to conclusions, oh, he's just a pillow-fisted guy. He has limited boxing IQ. You know, people have to really think here. You need to actually watch the man's skills before saying, oh, he's going to lose because of a KO or because he only has a 40% KO ratio. You know, I believe that there's one guy, his name was Nicolino Loche. Real famous at 140 pounds, had 16 title defenses back in the day. He knocked out, or he stopped a guy named Paul Takeshi Fuji who had almost 100% KO ratio. And Loche didn't even have 10% KO ratio. So that right there shows you, Bones, that it's not always the case if you have the skills. And I'm telling you now, William Skull has the skills, Bones. Yeah, but here's the thing. Devin Haney always fought smaller fighters. Ryan Garcia was the first fighter that was anywhere around his height. William Skull is fighting guys bigger than him, and he's outclassing them. What do you think he's going to do to somebody who's slower and shorter than him. He's gonna make him miss, man. That's exactly what he's going to do. But this is a good point. I'm glad you bring it up because I really don't like Devin Haney. Because I say I like William Scull does not mean that I like Devin Haney. I am amongst the first people out saying that Devin Haney is a clown, a coward, and he's one of those guys who tries to erase shit when things go or things don't go his way. And he also relies on Victor Conti, who weaponizes Vada against his snack fighters. So it's like I don't. Pacheco makes easy work. Well, we have to see if Pacheco can even get up the rankings there. The IBF is really finicky, but I know Pacheco's up there as well. Of course, you still have to look at the prospect of, Munguia might try to go after that. Hell, you might actually have David Benavidez eyeing that. You never know. Like, there's a lot of situations that could be going down right now behind closed doors. Because by now, everybody's heard of this Cuban fighter who has one of the belts at 168 pounds. And I believe that any logical top-ranked fighter, rather it be, I mean, Benavidez, he still has the WBC interim. So I believe that would. I'm sure if he would petition the IBF, I believe they would be down for it. No, Pacheco is only like number 5 or 6 in the IBF. He has like 4 guys in front of him. Hell, according to the IBF rankings, Shishkin is still ahead of him. So I'd say what Pacheco needs to do is he probably needs to get like one more fight in, maybe a couple more fights in, because I'd like to see Pacheco because I believe, his style could pay dividends in a fight of that nature. But most definitely, I think Pacheco is one of those special kids. He's somebody who has always been liked on my channel. But as far as saying, "Oh, he makes easy work," I mean, I can't say that, man, because I've seen guys punch down at William Scull. I mean, Sean Hemphill, another guy who is 6'1", who was punching down at him. He can't touch. You can't touch. Scull is just too quick. He outpoints. Now, when it comes to being all over the place, they because they don't give the. I mean, you have multiple promotions, right? That are outside of your big 5 or your big 6 promoters. You have Matchroom, Top Rank, uh, you know Queensberry, Boxer, PBC, Don King, just to say the least. But believe it or not, there's actually promoters outside of that realm. And Aegon Sports, ran by Ego Volkman, is just one of those guys in Europe that is producing damn good opportunities. And I'm not sitting here trying to say, oh, the IBF is just bringing up nobodies. I know that they're bringing up guys who aren't part of the big promotional companies, if that's what you mean. But I wouldn't say that they're just pulling up nobodies because these guys are fighting mandatories, for fuck's sake, or they're fighting for mandatory status and title eliminators and stuff like that. course. I mean, as far as being stating that a title eliminator doesn't qualify you to fight for a title, that's kind of weak. Because why call it a title eliminator and then become a mandatory if the champion's gonna duck you or not fight you because because of how many guys that follow you on social media, which is a stupid criteria. Unless if you're part of like a social credit society, it shouldn't matter if the guy has zero followers on social media. If I mean, when it comes to money, you could say you could say that at least for a moment, but if you're for real on legacy and being undisputed, you have to take on all comers regardless of their popularity level. And and when you don't, that makes it look horrendous, man. Now, William Scull said, "Oh, I want Canelo Alvarez." He said before, he said after. Matter of fact, you can credit William Scull's management for strong arming him into being in the position that he's in now. And and him outclassing Shishkin in the fight. So, I'm not gonna sit here and allow people to just shit on William Skull when they haven't even watched even a minute of what he has to offer in the ring. Yeah, well, Anthony Kakachi just defeated Cordina and then just defeated someone else. So, what are you talking about? I mean, how can you duck somebody when when they've only had the belt just for a little bit, man? Yeah, make it make sense a little bit, Bones. I mean, Kakachi's good. Kakachi's fine. There's nothing wrong with Kakachi. If anything, he's the man who sent Joe Cordina home packing. Yeah, yeah, and I saw Shakur Stevenson trying to get a fight with Joe Cordina and shit. That's pathetic, man. After he got beat up like that, he wasn't supposed to fight Nunez like that. Nunez had not put the nail in the coffin in negotiations. You have to make it make sense, bro. And plus, there's order to things here. There's things called voluntary defense. Oh, I'm gonna do this voluntary defense, and then I'll take on this mandatory defense. You have to let him. You have to let him have his day here because you have the IBF gives you time as long as you inquire. So if he says, "Okay, I'm gonna do this voluntary defense," and then I will do the mandatory defense. That is inquiring. That's what people like Canelo should have done in the Skull situation, or what Bud Crawford should have done with Jerron Bootsinis. He should have just went ahead and fought the match. But no, they want to duck their opposition and then make the excuse that they don't generate enough revenue as a stupid excuse. And you know Nunes hasn't been up there for long enough to be ducked. That's the whole entire thing here. I'm pretty sure Kakashi and Nunes is going down in the next fight. I'm with you, Bones. I'm with you, Bones. But I'm not. But I'm not gonna say Kakachi's ducking anyone. He's a well-rounded veteran, and he's gone to war. He's taken losses. He's gotten robbed, in my opinion. But you know, I'm not saying he's completely 100% unbeatable. But what I'm saying is Kakashi, of all people, the Anton Town Apache is no duck. Oh, most definitely. I mean, 27-0 with 27 KOs. That's on up there with my guy Edwin Valero. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm an Edwin Valero guy. You know, I loved watching Valero and just the way he put together his punches, and he would just be wild. Could watch him all day. I enjoy fighters that have Semtex in both of their hands. But most definitely, the fact that William Skull supporters around the world, you know, I find it interesting indeed. But wait a second. A lot of people, what do you mean? Guys who didn't even watch the fight and watch the highlights? Yeah, that's how I know. That's how I know they didn't watch the whole fight. Because if they say, oh, if they think Skull lost, if you think Skull lost at all, you didn't watch the fight. You must not have watched the fight. Like the boxing voice, for example. He was so Ness was so stoned when he was making his observation that he couldn't even freaking see that Skull was parrying all shots, bro. And of course, that is a very good defensive tactic to keep your head from getting knocked off. Well, Canelo's not even going to fight this man. Canelo, this is the man. This is the boogeyman. This is the boogeyman. You can't hit him, and even if you do, it's not going to phase him. William Skull is amongst the greatest defensive fighters in super middleweight history, if not the. And if you don't like defensive fighting, then that's just a preference. I mean, I like fighters of all styles. I guess that's why I like swarmers. I like certain swarmers, but it seems like a lot of them tend to get chinned. But there's still swarmers that I like. But anyone that actually watches a William Skull fight knows who he fights like. But a lot of people they think they know it all about boxing, but they can't even tell you who he fights like. Most definitely, he fights like Nicolino Loche. But he doesn't have to use the most fanciest footwork to make you miss, and he uses he uses simplicity with some aggression. He has enough power to keep you off of him. Yeah, and Skull is making his own legacy anyway. I agree with you, Bones. He's making his own legacy, but Canelo would just. Canelo's. I don't even think Canelo's looking in his direction. Like he's like legitimately, he avoids the style altogether because Skull is a very very strong guy, very underrated. Um, he makes bigger fighters fight to his IQ, and they can't keep up. So what do you think he's gonna do with a smaller fighter with not very good footwork, who's only throwing 2-3 punches at a time? He's going to make Canelo miss, and Canelo knows that. Canelo's already had his fights against Lara, already had his fights against Beeble, already had his fights against Floyd. It's not that hard to see the resemblance here. Chris Mannix said it was the most boring fight in championship history. Well, Chris Mannix is full of shit. I don't listen to a word that man says. I don't listen to Diane Raphael sucking on Canelo's balls. And I'm not going to listen to anyone else suck on any fighter's balls in that regard. To say that a fight was the most boring in championship history, they need to actually check that. That right there would be Shakur Stevenson versus that De Los Santos guy. Because William Scull actually engages with his opponent. And most people, they think it's horrendous because William Scull makes a bigger opponent miss when he's standing right in front of him. And these guys must not know shit about boxing. You don't have to have the most fanciest footwork all the time. And that's how I know I have these guys outclassed. That's how I know that no one on here seems to know shit about boxing. It's about hitting and not getting hit. But I'm not gonna sit here and say because William Scull doesn't keep his chin out and goes to war with his opponents all the time doesn't mean that he's a coward for not engaging in that regard. Because you don't like the style doesn't mean you have to shit on it. I mean, he's good for the skill set he has. He's amongst the greatest defensive fighters out there right now. I respect it. I enjoy it a lot better than Floyd Mayweather. I don't think William Scull's going to sit there and just run around the ring away from his opponents. But you guys drawing an unrealistic expectation of what a fight should be. I mean, mad respect to all styles. I mean, that's just how I am. That's just how I am. I have respect for, amongst my favorites was, Finito Lopez. I always loved a style like that. I also loved like Joe Calzaghe. I loved watching Sven Otke. Sven Otke was 34 34-0 with 6 KOs, with 5-6 KOs. That man had an absolute phenomenal amateur background. But when he turned pro, fought in Germany, won the IBF title, almost everyone avoided him until he retired. Once he retired, then everybody started unifying at 168 pounds. Sven Otke, is a very underrated fighter. And if you knew anything about William Scull, you would see his output is a very Sven Otke-esque. I mean, it's a very interesting style. He's not sitting there trying to just blast out his opponent. It's like he's prolonging the fight. He could stop his opponents, but he'd rather do the rounds so he can display his skills. William Scull is a tough fighter, guys. But he's just boxing in a way where his skills would be properly displayed. And the fact that these guys don't understand that, well, they're just emotionally triggered. But with all that being said, this is Telkin Sports Media, signing out.